All right. Good evening for folks out there watching the stream. My name is Sarah DeGray, and this is super exciting that I'm going to sit here and use this platform to talk about building REV indoor cycling and taking that from an idea to a reality. So super stoked you guys are here. I do want to make this interactive. So if you have questions, go ahead, put them in the chat, and I will try to address some of those questions. So if something that I said stirs something in you, or you want to hear a little bit more about that, by all means, please use that chat function. So that'll be really awesome for me to know what to expand upon. I'm not planning on doing this for more than an hour, so we'll see where it goes. If we don't take that much time, we don't take that much time. This is recording as well, so it will be posted as a living document, as a tool for you to go back to and rewatch it or share it if you need to. Very cool. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah DeGray, and I'm the owner and founder of REV Indoor Cycling, located in South Burlington, Vermont, formerly located in Burlington, Vermont. And I've moved around a little bit. So we're definitely going to talk about that and about the journey. So something I wanted to discuss with you guys is just what it is to take an idea and turn that idea into a reality, into a business, into a thriving business. I was very lucky to have been awarded the Vermont Woman-Owned Business of the Year by the Small Business Administration just recently, actually. And on March 5th, 2020, I received news that I was a Business of the Year. And it's bittersweet at this point because REV is partially closed, I'll put it that way, partially closed to in-person indoor cycling. But it's just part of the story now, part of the story of hardships and failures. So how did I build a business in about 7 years' time into a 7-figure business? Is probably what you want to know. I think it's important to state at the outset that I didn't originally see myself in this role. I wasn't sure, didn't know that I was going to be an entrepreneur or start a business or necessarily work for myself. I had always thought that I would be a teacher of some kind. So there's some congruence there, but I thought I would either be a high school teacher, a college professor, at some times in my life, a lawyer. So I envisioned myself in a different professional setting. So how does one go from possible professor or lawyer to fitness instructor and fitness entrepreneur? Well, I was always quite studious. I really enjoyed school. I love being a student, and that comes through even in my work today, that I love to be a student. And just had mentors in my life that really encouraged me to keep going in my academic studies. So what I saw for myself and how I saw myself was really a scholar, and that I wanted to continue with that. And my goal, certainly in my early 20s, was to obtain a PhD, and that had become very important for me. Neither of my parents went to college, so the fact that I was obtaining a college degree was a pretty big deal, and I wanted to really see how far I could go. So the PhD was really kind of the top of excellence, if you will. So I set out to do that. I graduated from William Smith College in 2006. Had to think about that for a second. It was a long time ago. In 2006, again, with plans to go to graduate school. The first time I applied to graduate school, I actually got rejected from every school that I applied to. And I had people telling me that you got to apply to Yale, you have to apply to Columbia, Johns Hopkins, top tier schools. And my GRE scores at the time, when this still really mattered, were really subpar. So I knew that I wasn't getting looked at. So it didn't happen for me then. I'm really determined. I'm really stubborn. So I thought, okay, I'm going to study for the GRE again. I'm going to retake it. I'm going to reapply to grad school. I'm going to show everybody I can get into a program. So long story short, I do enter into a graduate school program at the New School for Social Research in New York City. And I enter into that program in 2008. So the country is facing a recession. There's a lot of stuff happening, and a lot of people are losing their jobs. And I'm entering into the workforce, but the graduate school, but a really interesting time to be in New York City. And I was starting to realize pretty quickly that this was not the correct path for me. And I really feel strongly that we have this internal compass. And if we only listen to that internal compass, it will provide some direction. I really feel like we know intuitively in our soul whether or not we're doing something that really fuels us and that's right, or we're doing something because somebody else told me this is how I should be living my life. So I'm really grateful that I started to recognize that pretty early into my graduate studies, that this is not the path. And one of my coping mechanisms for dealing with that internal strife was to go to spinning class. I've always been an athlete. I grew up an athlete. And when I discovered spinning, I discovered indoor cycling in 2005 in the Netherlands, in fact. And I was on a study abroad trip as a senior, which not many people go abroad their senior year. So I was sort of bucking the trend of going away the fall of my senior year. And it was a pretty lonely experience being abroad in a very small program. And I wanted a sense of community, and I found a gym that offered spinning. I'd never tried it, and I was instantly hooked. And I did not speak the language, unfortunately. I was at an international school where they taught in English, but obviously living in a Dutch city. And I fell in love with the music, and I didn't know it at the time, but the gym was owned by a woman. Her name is Constance. And I just thought she was such a badass. And here she is, she's running the show. It's her gym. She's crushing it. And I just kind of stored that into my DNA. And I had a really incredible few months, and just completely fell in love with indoor cycling, just the music, the community, everything. And I took that back with me, and I went back to school, and I graduated, and I kind of just put that to bed. But I had this real yearning to get back to that exercise. So when I found myself living in New York City and kind of down and sort of realizing or thinking, gosh, I think I made a huge mistake starting graduate school and moving to a new city, I found comfort and solace in something I loved, which was spin class. So that really helped me cope and kind of get through the next 2 years and sort of navigate what I was going to do. So I decided not to complete my PhD program. And for me, that was really kind of putting my tail between my legs. And I really had to fight that urge, feeling like a failure, feeling like I hadn't completed what I told the world I was going to do. I was going to get my doctorate. And I'm a stubborn person, and I like to finish what I start. If I start something, I'm going to see it through to the end. And this was not that. I had to just say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going to call it. And I know I'm very lucky. I graduated with a master's degree in political science. And I decided to move back to Vermont. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, and Vermonters maybe in particular. It doesn't matter where you live or where you're watching this, but if you go off and you do something, and maybe you move to a new city, or you're trying something, and then you return home, there is so much shame associated with that return home for a lot of people, where people really think that they've somehow failed. And that's really too bad, because that's not necessarily the case. And I learned a lot in my 2 years away. I certainly learned what I didn't want to do, and I learned who I did not want to become. And that was invaluable. And when I came back, I am a Vermonter. I'm from Southern Vermont. But when I moved back to Burlington, I had a stronger sense of purpose and who I was and what I wanted when I came back. So, if you're someone that's left, and maybe you've left for a bigger city, particularly if you're born and raised Vermont or have spent a lot of time here, it is not a failure to come back, no matter where you are. So I think we need to kind of work on how we frame that and sort of the shaming process that goes with that. But you see, I'm already several minutes into this, and we haven't even talked about building the cycling studio yet. But see, this is all the lead up. This is how one takes an idea. So now I find myself back, and I've got a master's degree, and I don't have a job. So I get a job with the federal public defender office. I have a brief moment where I think I'm going to go to law school. So I take the LSAT and I apply to some law schools, and lo and behold, I don't get in. And I remember just thinking, like, am I stupid? Am I not smart? What is going on here? And hindsight's 2020, but I actually think a little bit spiritually about this, that I was being redirected, because no doubt I truly believe that if I had set foot on campus and begun law school, my life would have taken a very different direction. So, there's another failure, there's another rejection. I had to go, okay, I had to re-examine, what am I doing? So I'm in this job at the federal public defender's office. Very thankful to have that job. And I decide I want to get back into training. I want to get back to, spin classes. This is my thing. I'm out of New York City. I'm back in Vermont. What is here? What is happening? And I looked around, and I was incredibly disappointed at the selection, at the level, the quality of spin class and indoor cycling in the place that I was actively choosing to make my home. And that really stuck with me. And I said, okay, if I'm going to live in this state, if I'm going to live in Burlington, I've got a couple must-haves on my list that, non-negotiables to stay in this area. And one of my non-negotiables was to be able to take an awesome spin class. That was just really important for me and my being. This was my coping mechanism. It was a lot of things for me, and it was lacking. So I decided, all right, it doesn't exist here. I'm going to create it. I'm going to fill that gap. I'm going to fill that void. I can do it. I have a passion. I have a passion for music. I love to DJ. I love to make playlists. You guys that take my classes, you know that. I'm obsessive about music. I love it. And I really love sports, and I love to entertain. I love to be in front of people. So, what better job than to be a spinning instructor, right? To me, it just made a lot of sense. So I get this fusion of, the adrenaline and the dopamine of sports and working out, the endorphins that are created because of that. I get to mix playlists, and I get to introduce people to music, and we get to vibe on sort of this party in a dark room. And I knew exactly how I wanted to do it and get it done. And so I started on this journey of writing things down and in setting an intention, quite literally setting an intention. This is what I want, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I would first say that that's really important. So if you have an idea, something that you're thinking about, write that idea down and really start to map how that gets done. And if you don't know how, then seek out the resources. So, long before, at least a year before actually opening up my cycling studio, I was doing the research, and I was really into seeing what New York City was doing. I had just moved out of New York. I had taken some phenomenal spin classes. Certainly, we know these names. Soul Cycle was just absolutely blowing up on the scene. Little bit later on, there'd be a studio called Flywheel. And again, so I'm kind of researching what's out there and sort of setting this standard for myself. Like, okay, I want to create something that's amazing. That's this high standard for this area, and how I was going to do it. And one of my real limiting factors was funds, money. And I know that is a huge barrier to entry. So if you're watching this, or you're sitting at home and you're like, yeah, I want to open a restaurant, or I want to do this, or I want to start this clothing business, or whatever it is. There are real barriers to success in being able to do that, and one of those barriers, of course, is access to funding and financing, and that's real. And certainly, we live in a society that makes that much harder for, depending on where you come from and what you look like and your background. That can be almost impossible, to have that kind of access. So I learned very quickly. I took things really seriously. I crafted a business plan. I had break-even analysis. I was sourcing, my equipment, and everything from, everything was used. So I was really kind of trying to figure out how to build this budget and actually not ask for a lot when I went to the bank. And I'll never forget, the moment of meeting with a loan officer and being really proud of this portfolio that I put together. And I'm thinking I'm so slick and professional, and I'm handing my documents over and for her to review. And of course, they look at your debt to income ratio. And so I am, how old am I? I'm 29 years old at this point, I want to say. Am I 29, 28, 29? And my debt to income ratio is not, in the spot where you need it to be for a bank to loan you money. Not only that, I specifically remember, being told, oh, Frank Dodd, because of the financial crisis, she kind of said, oh, we used to loan out money left and right, and now there's stricter regulations right after 2008. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to loan you any money. So I didn't own anything at that point. I rented my apartment. I leased my car. I had no collateral. I did not have a co-signer. All of these things. I knew I had $1 million idea. I knew that from the beginning. I knew it was a great idea, and I knew I could execute it. But when you show up to the bank, they're going to want to see a little bit more substance and know that they're going to get their money back, right? They're a business. So the answer was no. And, at that point, that's a point where some people would have been like, all right, well, I tried. And I didn't want to give up. And we're lucky in this state where we have credit unions and other programs and for access to funding. And I honestly didn't really know a lot about that back when I was starting. This is back in 2012. I just didn't know that. So what I did was reach out. They call it bootstrapping, kind of trying to pull together enough funds from people in my network that I would pay back, but just to get me started. And so that's what I did. And I was able to raise about $30,000 that way. And I decided I was going to I had to start really conservatively. And this is something that I would totally recommend, is not getting in over your head. If you're planning on starting a business and you're like me, I did not have access to a lot of capital. I did not have access to a lot of wealth. So I knew I had to be really conservative in my approach, and I didn't want to take on more debt than I thought I would be able to pay back. So I think it's a really important question that you want to ask yourself. So if shit hits the fan, how much can I really stick my neck out for? How much would I really be able and willing, or not willing, but able to eventually pay off if this didn't work out and it just kind of blows up in your face? And so I thought, all right, I'm going to start the cycling studio with $30,000, which is not easy. But I sourced all used equipment. I found a tiny space. Shout out to Russ and Roxanne Scully. They are super supportive people in our community if you live in Chittenden County, and they have done amazing things in terms of their financial stewardship and the businesses that they have and the growth that they've contributed to this community. They are two people that I owe a lot of credit to for when I talked about my idea of having a little spin studio, that they just believed in it, and they were super stoked, and they said, okay, cool. Sure, you can rent this space. And they didn't ask for any proof or financials. And I actually kind of thought they were nuts. But I was really grateful. They gave me a chance and they gave me exactly what I needed. So I will say, if you're on the other side, maybe if you have started a business or maybe you have access to capital or wealth, how you can be a really important person is to give someone else a chance, to believe in someone, give them that access, give them a way in, because without that, without being able to fundraise some money, without having someone in the land owning class, someone that has real estate say, okay, we're going to take a chance on this young woman. We believe in her and we believe in her idea. Without that, what comes next isn't even possible. So thankful to them for believing in me and my ability. So yeah, I started with a 20 bike studio, and it was myself. And I just remember being like, it was a pretty selfish pursuit, to be honest. At first, it was definitely a passion project. And I thought, I just am looking to take the best spin class ever possible, set that bar really high. So, if no one else comes, okay, if I get 5 people, if I get 10 followers, if I get the same 20 people and they show up week after week, then that's amazing. And to be honest, in the beginning, I was like, I just want to do it. I want to contribute to this community, and we'll see where it goes. And I had always felt like this could really take off and be a thing, but I hadn't yet really visualized its fullness yet. And so I opened my doors on November 12th, 2012, and it's interesting to think that it'll be 8 years coming up really soon in November. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that it would last that long again. So opened up, and what's amazing, that I currently have clients that have been with Rev from the very beginning, that first couple of weeks that we opened, and they are still with us today. And that just speaks volumes to have that kind of longevity with people, and a testament not only to, I think, what's been created here, but also to them, because it's been a windy road, which we'll talk about. So 2012 in November I opened, and kind of right away, it was something special, and it was myself, and I hired, I use that term loosely. There were 3 or 4 other instructors associated with Rev, actually 4. Yep, 4 instructors. And so I had this brilliant idea. I thought it was brilliant, that if I pulled an instructor from some pre-existing programs in the area, that their following would want to come check out Rev. Okay, so at the time, I had an instructor that was a regular teacher at Synergy. I had an instructor that was a regular teacher at Shelburne Athletic Club. I had an instructor that was a regular teacher at Hammerfit, and I had an instructor that was a regular teacher at The Edge. And I'm thinking, I'm a genius, right? And I'm not full of myself at all, because people are just gonna, they're gonna come because these other people are associated with Rev. And I quickly found out that wasn't the case, because if they could ride with their favorite instructor every Saturday at the place that they already had a membership, why were they going to spend the extra money just to follow them to this new place that they don't know anything about? And that was one of my first lessons. And so eventually I realized that I would have to train instructors from within, create from within, start a training program, or hire from within audition. And so that was kind of a lesson very early on, that wasn't going to work how I thought it would. But people were coming to Rev because of this vibe that was created. It wasn't a flashy place. For those of you that came to, we affectionately call it 1.0. For those of you that came to 1.0, I mean, it was a small room. It was 1,200 square feet or less of space, and we crammed 20 bikes in, and we didn't even have any walls or real doors. We had cubbies, and the speakers were on top of the cubbies, And, I had a used desk from Ashley Home Furniture that was on clearance because it was the floor model and whatnot. And the thing was, it still had this essence and this coolness to it, and this DIY vibe, that it didn't need to have all the bells and whistles. I mean, it couldn't, because the money wasn't there. I couldn't hire a contractor. I couldn't afford a wall. Walls are really expensive if you've ever had any construction done. So I made it work, and what it was about was the music and this vibe, this dark room. We just kind of like close our eyes and the lights are off and we got candles going and the music is loud. And if you've been in the environment, you know how electric that is. And that's how it started. And so that was the reputation that was really important for me to maintain. And the growth was quick. And a credit to people that came. It was word of mouth. And some questions that I get asked often are, well, how did you advertise, or how much did you spend on advertising? And 2012 was back before Facebook got really messed up in their own algorithms. And, you didn't have to boost ads all the time and pay for stuff. So it was still a little bit more organic, sort of the social media that you would get, the sort of viral social media, if you will. And just, we were on Facebook and Instagram was still young, but people were just going to Facebook and saying, oh my God, I'm at the studio, and people would bring friends, and quickly we're selling out, like night after night, weekend after weekend, at 20 bikes. And I start to realize pretty early on that, okay, I've got to do something about this. I got to get more bikes. I got to grow at some point. So I had signed I believe a 3-year lease, and already we're into 2013, and I'm just kind of seeing this trajectory. So I order a few more bikes, and if you guys know anything about REV and our popularity, that oftentimes our neighbors are not very happy with us and our growth, and we play loud music and we take up parking spots, and that's just how we roll. And so kind of my first studio was on Pine Street in Burlington, and we were literally situated in the same building as a tortilla place, a Mexican lunch spot, lunch and dinner, loosely term that food, sort of a fusion, and a frozen yogurt place and a dance studio. And it was just kind of a really weird vibe, and we didn't have our own bathrooms. We shared it. Yeah, it's just kind of funny thinking back to it. But quickly, I realized this growth potential, and it was actually really frightening and really scary. And so this is the point where I made another really dumb mistake, and probably my biggest error, which I really like to highlight, is that I suddenly assumed that I was not capable of being at the helm of a business that was growing so fast. And I got really scared, and I think I questioned my own ability to run that business, and was unsure of what move to make. And so I made a hasty decision, an uninformed decision, to sell half of my business to pretty much a stranger who I didn't know that well, but who had a reputation in a fitness studio. And this is where we can get kind of blindsided by somebody that sort of has the perfect looking resume, and we think, okay, yeah, I need that person because they're with that big company, and that's what I need. And if I'm trying to be like them, then I need this person to help get me there. And it's unfortunate that I felt that was what I needed at the time, but that's where I was. So I sold 50% of the company. And as soon as we kind of started working together, I had some extra capital out of that sale. So I decided we're going to move the business. We're going to grow into a bigger studio. So we moved to what we call REV 2.0, if you're following, on Flynn Avenue, which is now across from the City Market South End, but it wasn't there at the time. And so we're building out this bigger studio. We've got more bikes. We're finally buying new bikes instead of used bikes. So, I feel like we're taking it up a level. But I quickly knew that I had made a huge mistake. Huge mistake by partnering with this person who I didn't know enough about. I basically was blinded by the clout that I thought they held, and I held them in high esteem, and really it was undeserving in my eyes, and now in retrospect. And so that was a very contentious relationship and full of conflict. And I knew it was kind of a battle for my soul and for Rev's soul. And it sounds dramatic, but it really was that. And I could feel like the business was going in a direction that I didn't believe in, and I felt like my integrity was challenged. And I finally had to come to this decision that this is it. I can stand on my own 2 feet. I'm going to reclaim this business. It's mine. I know how I want to run it. I know what I need to do, and I don't need this person. So we dissolved that partnership. And that was one of the lowest points in my sort of my personal life, my professional life. Certainly the financial coffers were really drained in that situation. And I was very scared that the music was going to stop and that I no longer had a business. And I thought, okay, well, I gave it a really good try, and I made a dumb decision, and now, I'm out. And, times were really, really tough. And I was struggling I had a kind of a skeleton crew for staff, and I was just really exhausted. And yeah, it was almost the end. And I credit my mom. I had a lot of conversations with my mom back then, and she was just like, think about what you really love to do, and your purpose, and you're really good at this. And she gave me a few really important pep talks to not give up, and that I could pull myself out of this, and I was strong enough, and I had what it took to, turn the ship around and take it in a new direction. And it's something that a lot of people that probably didn't know was happening behind the scenes, but it was kind of a rough year. And so, I decided we were heading into the summer season, which typically is a slow season. If you're in Vermont, you know why. A lot of people they're in the great outdoors, which they should be. And I was like, all right, let's hold auditions. Let's hold instructor auditions and see what comes out. And it was amazing. 20 people came out to auditions, and you may be thinking, that's weird. She does auditions. And I got to remind you that I'm an entertainer, and I have a performance background, and I love singing, being in musicals and things like that. And if you want to be in a play, if you want to be in a musical, if you want to be in the madrigals, whatever it is, you've got to audition, and you've got to bring your A game. And I've always felt that what set my business apart in terms of indoor cycling and spinning was that I hire entertainers. I don't look for accomplished athletes per se. I don't look for accomplished cyclists. I've had people bring me resumes, about what they've done athletically speaking, and like, well, that's great, but you've got to show me who you are on a podium in front of people, and how you perform, and how you interact with music. Do you have musicality? Do you have good taste in music? Do you know how to count? Because music is such an integral part to the experience of a great cycling class, and I truly believe that. So we hold auditions, and it was amazing to see who came out, and I just thought, 20 people, this is awesome that 20 people even know about this. And from that, I believe I hired 5 people, and I got a really stellar squad. We call each other the REV squad. Out of that process, and so that kind of began. There would always be an audition process to become a cycling instructor. And in the early days, you auditioned and you got a little bit of feedback from me and a little bit of help, but usually it was, okay, great. I really like you, and here's how you mix the music in this DJ software, and let's go. Your first class or 2 we're going to offer for free, and then you're going to learn on the job. So it was a little, just trial by fire. And a credit to the great instructors that are still here, with us today, that, they've stuck with that, and they just grew and were totally amazing and incredible. So audition. So, in other positions, who cares about the resume? You want to see that person and how they're actually going to behave and perform. So what better way to put them on stage and have them, show me, entertain me, give me a good workout. And oh, by the way, you've got to do it in about 3 minutes. So that was that process. And so slowly kind of we find ourselves kind of crawling out of this hole, if you will, and really, growing the membership and growing the brand and the name and feeling really good. And, life is always gonna throw you hiccups and barriers and all kinds of things, and it's going to continue to test you. And you know this because you've been tested many times in your life. And when I really was feeling good about things, when I really felt like I've got it together, I'm dating this new guy, I'm happy, fast forward a little bit later, I'm buying my first house, I'm hitting these milestones that I feel like are really important for me, these sort of markers of success, if you will. I'm like, this is great. I'm just flying so high. And that's when I was handed an eviction letter. I was being kicked out of my commercial space. So I was being evicted from my place of business. Okay. And I was handed this eviction letter in January of 2017. Okay. So I start the business November 2012. Things are going well. We expand, go into a really bum deal. Things kind of go down for a little bit. I get out of that. I'm back on top, start climbing. I'm like, okay, life is good. I'm buying my house. I'm XYZ. And then boom, total roadblock. Like, you're doing what? Oh, did I mention it's January? So let's think about this for a second. Let's think about how the year is structured into quarters. Okay, so that's the first quarter. That's the first financial quarter. It's January in the fitness industry. What happens on January 1 in the fitness industry? Every single person decides that they're going to get fit this year, that they're going to be their best self. Okay. So this is January is sort of the height of your year. Okay. In the fitness industry. And we are a few days into that month and I'm being handed an eviction letter. And not only this eviction letter, but it says you have 21 days to get out. And so what was my violation? You're probably thinking, what did you possibly do? Well, I was informed that I was in violation of the quiet enjoyment clause. And if you've signed a residential lease or a commercial lease, there's a quiet enjoyment clause in these leases, and they're pretty broad. So if you are impeding someone else's right to do what they do, either conduct business peacefully, kind of not be bothered, or if it's in a residential situation, if you're disturbing someone else's living space where they sort of can't function, or you disrupt their quiet enjoyment, that is potentially grounds to be removed. And so we play really loud music, and kind of the most disingenuous thing about the whole process was that I'm a very transparent person. And when we signed all the paperwork and we signed the lease and everything, it was both parties knew exactly what they were getting into. So we're not going to dive too deep into that situation. But I mention it to say that, boom, there's another roadblock. And there was another reason to say, okay, do I give up? Do I call it? Do I say, all right, I'm getting kicked out. It's January. I got nowhere to go. All right, well, it was a good run. What do I do? Or do I fight for my life? Do I fight for my business? Do I fight for this community? And it was a moment where I felt like I had to be, again, completely transparent with my community and with my members. And this is something that I feel I've always done. And I think it's so important. So if you are a boss, if you're a leader, a parent, whatever, you can extrapolate this to whatever makes sense for you. Being communicative and being transparent is really going to serve you well. I think sometimes people think that they either can't be honest or they have to present in a certain way. And that's not necessarily true. There's something to be said for vulnerability and for just being honest about where things are at. And so I've really always tried to conduct myself in that way. And so in that moment, I remember, really trying to hold it together when I was served this letter, and then just totally broke down and cried, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I went right to social media and I just like full on put the letter out there, so, blasted it out to the world. We are being evicted. Like, this is what's happening. And not necessarily because I wanted, nothing directed at the folks that handed me that letter, but more of a reaching out to my community for help, saying, okay, I need some help here. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And to this day, it had the most comments, responses, engagement, if you will, than any other Facebook post on anything else I've ever done. And it was, and maybe some of you are watching now, people posting, this real estate agent, I know this place is available in Williston, South Burlington, South End, like XYZ. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that. And I have never felt so much love and support and just commitment and people like rushing to help or do what they can, say, oh my God, well, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What happens next? And so that was really crucial. And so it was through that, I got this surge of energy and I'm like, you know what, this is going to push me to new heights. And what was really beautiful about this moment, because you can take these roadblocks and tragedies or failures, rejections, whatever, and you can do a couple of different things. You can say, you can give up, or you can wallow in it, or you can, why me? What did I do? I don't deserve this. You can play that game. Or you can say, okay, this is an opportunity. So yeah, somebody, I was dealt this hand, but you know what? I was probably just going to stay in this particular location and I was probably going to renew my lease. And where is the growth potential in that? Okay. So I wasn't really thinking of, what's next? How can I take this business to the next level? Until in my face, it was, well, you can't be here anymore. So you got to figure that out. And it was actually, I'm so grateful for that moment. I'm so grateful that I got kicked out, because it really forced my hand and it forced me to move on to bigger and better things. And so that's when REV 3.0 was born, and I found a location in South Burlington. And at this point, having an established business, I was able to go to a bank and get a loan, because I had that history, and finally debt to income ratio had changed, and I had a reputation in the community, and et cetera, et cetera. And I was able to get financing to literally build the studio of my dreams, which is where I'm sitting tonight. And that might not have been possible, or at least happen the way it happened, had this event not occurred. And so, we just moved forward, and I'm so grateful, in June of 2017. So like, again, we get this letter in January. I was able to negotiate. I'm like, all right, if I can stay in this lease until the end of May, that's great. And I remember, and maybe some of you were in the class, we had our last class at 2.0, Memorial Day weekend. And that's the marathon weekend. And so it was Monday. So it was after Marathon Sunday, we were closed. We had our last set of classes on Memorial Day. And I was like, literally, as soon as we locked the door, it was my boyfriend had the moving truck, and we were wheeling bikes, and we were getting them in the moving truck, and we were heading out, because I'd already signed the lease on the new space. So it was there. And we were like, let's get to work. And we had been working. The new space was being constructed over several weeks. And it was a really fast build. So a credit to J.A. Morrissey, an amazing woman-owned construction company, contractors, just amazing. And they built this beautiful, beautiful studio in 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, the timeline was just relentless. And we opened our doors on June 4th I believe June 4th or June 5th, 2017. So just a little bit over 3 years ago. And so we were only closed for less than 7 days because it was so important for me that my members didn't lose any time. I was like, no, we can't be closed for a really long time. We're just going to close. I want the narrowest window possible. And then boom, we're going to hit the ground running. And so we reopened in June of 2017 in just this beautiful place. And so that's going and we're seeing that growth and that trajectory, and the staff is growing. And those of you that came in the early days, we didn't have front desk staff. We didn't have help. If you came to REV, either 1.0 or 2.0, and it was my class, you'll know it was me running up and down those stairs, doing check-in, going downstairs, doing bike fits and everything in between. And the other instructors, if they taught, they were hustling up and down. And it's just so wild to think about that's how we did things. And so when we moved to 3.0, I said, all right, we're going to have this bigger space. We're going to be open for longer hours. We need front desk staff. This is sort of resembling more of, this boutique studio that has taken shape. So that was really amazing to see. We're employing people. We've got this just engine running, and it's been really amazing. And then I decide I'm gonna build a field house. All right, cool. You guys that have done the RevX program, it's taken many iterations. And I'm actually sitting in what used to be the RevX Room in 3.0, and it's pretty small. And we used to have a handful of RevX classes a week. If you don't know what RevX is, that's fine. It's sort of our circuit training class. We use kettlebells, dumbbells. Normally we'd use TRX straps and all kinds of toys and fun things for functional fitness. And kind of in the middle of all this, of sort of seeing this growth trajectory again, the business kept growing, we hit another roadblock. Of course, come on, it's life. You're going to hit bumps in the road. And that roadblock, you guys know, is our neighbors and our parking lot. And so that was kind of the big barrier at that point, in this parking lot at 10 Farrell Street, and that causing a lot of conflict. And, credit again to all of you and our customers and what we do here, that, it was just like getting, okay, you can park here, but not there. And this grew over time, because before we were one of the only businesses on this side. And then, things kind of shrunk down on us, and we felt like we had less and less space or ownership of the parking lot, and people started to have to go park further and further and further away. And if you come here, you know what that was like. I need you to park across the street. Oh, not there, over there. I mean, it's incredible to think like what we asked you to do to be part of this, and yet y'all did it. And so a testament to you and this place, for people being like, all right, you want me to jump how high? Just tell me where to go and I'll do it, because I need this. It's part of my life. So, we were navigating that, and then decided to build that field house in 2019. So construction began in January of 2019, and we opened the field house in March of 2019. And that field house is 4,000 square feet of space. So you've got this spinning studio that's 4,000 square feet. You've got the field house that's 4,000 square feet. And suddenly, in 2019, I find myself managing, 8,000 square feet of space, and 28 employees, and a PT 360 that's come in, and they're working with us and everything. And I'm like, we're doing it. I mean, this is amazing. This is hard work, and it takes a village, and it takes a whole team, and the Rev Squad just everybody just working so hard. And then we get into 2020, and I'm like, this is going to be an amazing year. 2019 was our best year yet. 2020, let's go, aim high. And, we're going in January, we're going in February and March, and boom, right? The whole world flipped upside down. Okay. And here we are. And, never in my wildest dreams or nightmares would think that going at the clip that we were going, serving 300 people every day, 300 people coming in and out of this space, and just the incredible community, and the vibe and the cycling classes and the functional fitness and everything, and just all the things that we were doing with each other, and how we were interacting, and that would just turn off. And that has really stung. That hit hard. That hit really hard. You're going at this trajectory. So boom, life hands you another roadblock, another barrier. And what are you going to do? And I truly believe that, as a nation, as a country, there's this grieving process that takes place. And I think everybody's in their various stages of grief. And it was really important for me to get to that acceptance stage as quickly as possible. So I really kind of went through my mourning process of REV as I've built it, as I've come to know it, as I've come to enjoy it and love it and nurture it. And I had to close the studio on March 14th, as I mentioned earlier. And the very next day was in front of a camera, posting my first workout video on YouTube. I don't know what I'm doing. Still don't, by the way. What was I going to do? And I sort of operate, the only way I know how is just to push forward, to keep going, pivot, reinvent, figure it out, keep moving. And that has served me well over the years. And so, boom, if you've been with us, if you've been sort of following the trajectory, it was, okay, let's just get content out. People are hurting. People don't know what the hell's going on. Their gyms are closed. Their offices are closed. Their kids are home. What's going on? Like, the whole world is on fire. What's happening? So, like, what do I do? What am I at my core? An entertainer, motivator, leader, whatever, DJ. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to do what I know how to do, and I'm going to get in front of the camera, and I'm just going to start coaching. And we get out, all these videos, and just stay connected to the community, because I knew that, that's been lacking, or that's been the hardest part, I think, for all of us, is just losing that sense of community and routine and things that we've held so near and dear to us, right? Physical touch, hugging friends, high-fiving. Oh, man. So doing that, quickly recognizing that this is not going away anytime soon. So what do I have to do to survive? What do I have to do to change my business model or hybrid model in this altering landscape that's literally shaking beneath me? It literally, every day, every week, I'm getting, all of us, we're getting new information, and it just feels like the ground underneath our feet is just kind of falling away, and you make the best of what you have, and then the information that you have when you have it. So, I had no choice. I had to put up bicycles for sale. What do I have for inventory? How can I make money? How do I pay the rent? Right? Get the bicycles out. We can't use them. So we do that. Well, how can we keep the community together? Okay, live stream classes, create digital content, create, an online workout channel, right? So we're doing that. So we have Rev on Demand, and this is, is it Rev 4.0? Is it Rev Virtual? Whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, it's this hybrid. And then as soon as the weather started to cooperate, as soon as this, we were able to gather in larger groups, and slowly reopen this economy. And where we are here in Vermont, we said, all right, we're going to offer outdoor, socially distanced classes. And that has just personally fed my soul. And I know a lot of you would agree with me if you've been to them lately. So, okay, we're doing outdoor classes. We're being responsible. We're pivoting to this online, this hybrid model. And let's see where it goes. And the goal always being excellence, and trying to be the best we can be in this new space, in this virtual space, in our offerings, and keep this community connected to the best of my ability has always just been a goal. So it really is sort of this remarkable journey, and one that isn't necessarily linear, but one where, many roadblocks and many pivotal moments have occurred in this journey of building this business to either say, okay, I'm out, or I'm just going to turn and I'm going to go this way. And so, and that's where I find myself today is, here I am talking to you online, and thank you so much for being here and listening and watching this. But yeah, I think what is really necessary now more than ever, and to be a successful entrepreneur or business, or even just kind of cope with life, is you've got to be flexible and you've got to be able to adapt. And, if you have flexibility and you have this ability to adapt to your changing circumstances, that you can see things through. If you dig your feet in the sand, or if you just have blinders on, or one way of looking at the world, one way of seeing things, or if you're not listening with open ears, if you're not collaborating, if you're not taking other things in, well, you may find yourself getting left behind. And I truly believe that, and I don't want that for you. So flexibility and the ability to adapt has really, been the hallmark of this longevity and this growth. And truly, again, when setting out to start this thing, not knowing, like, could it grow to reach thousands and thousands of people, or is it just going to be, just me and my friends, cycling, and who knows truly where this next phase takes us. So the sky is still the limit, and we just have to keep an open mind, and again, that flexibility and that adaptability. And that is where I find myself today. And it's August 6th, 2020. And I'm talking to you guys, and I know that the chat is on. If anyone has any questions, if not, my feelings won't be hurt. Like I said, I kind of plan to take this to the hour. So we've got, 5.5 minutes left. But if not, I'll just end early. So no problem, because I can't wait to eat dinner. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for hanging out and for listening. Just to the story, I think there's a lot of value in sharing stories and hearing each other's stories, and seeing how maybe similar or different other people's stories may be, and what we might draw from them, and from listening to others, and how we can hopefully be empowered ultimately, having compassion for others and their journey and their stories. So I really appreciate the fact that you took time out of your night to listen and maybe learn something. And I would love to see some further engagement. So you can either hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, or send me an email with your thoughts. And I'd be happy to know. And if you want more nights like this or other talks, or if you have something you want elaborated on a little bit more, then we can certainly do that. Sky's the limit. And I'm here for you if you're out there. So thank you guys so much for watching. And it's 8:00. Go read a book or watch some Netflix and have some ice cream, and have an awesome, awesome night. Thank you.